All right, this module, we're talking about conflict. The biggest takeaway from this is always wait a minute, conflict is good? Yes. Okay. We don't like conflict generally, but it's good, it's healthy. All right. We have to learn how to manage it rather than avoid it. So, as we continue with conflict, think about kind of a theme we've talked about where we love positive emotions and positive events and wins. We don't like losses and we don't like negative emotions, but the negative and the losses make the wins and the positive even better. We have to have both of them, right? The negatives tell us something to do. If we're feeling bad, it tells us how we need to behave to correct that. Same thing with conflict. If we're experiencing conflict, it's telling us something. So when we're in a group, a team, a relationship, and there is no conflict, that is a red flag. Something's going on. Someone is not speaking up. Okay. Maybe group dynamics keep them from speaking up. Maybe it's a personal thing. They don't feel like speaking up. So imagine going on a road trip with these four lovely people. This is just a random picture that popped up when search for group, but I thought it's a great example. So imagine going on a road trip. Have you ever been on a road trip where there was no conflict? Like, even when you plan, there should be some conflict. Well, how long do we want to drive every day? No, I think that's too long. No, I think that's too short. Where do we want to stop? Right? How often do we want to eat? Do we want to take our lunch or do we want to stop every time? What do we want to do? Like, there's conflict. There are different opinions that get voiced, and things get arranged in a way that hopefully accommodates everyone. But if we're on a road trip with this group of people and there's no conflict at all, something is going on. Either somebody's not speaking up or the group dynamics are such that people feel like they can't speak up. That is groupthink. Right? So groupthink is kind of a social process that's happening, and it makes us make poor decisions because we feel like we shouldn't speak up. Maybe there's a leader who's dominating the conversation and doesn't allow us to voice our opinion. Maybe there are mind guards that when we ask questions, they shut us down. So we want to make sure that we don't have groupthink going on because groupthink sometimes feels really nice. It feels like things are rolling smoothly. It feels like those cogs and gears are working together really smoothly, but we're making poor decisions. Okay. So we're driving, our engine's working, those wheels are turning to make the engine go, but we're in the process of driving off a cliff. All right. I just made that up on the spot, but that's what happens to groupthink. We make bad decisions because it feels so smooth. Right. Um, so conflict can be constructive or destructive. You've got a chart in your reading that kind of breaks it down for you. Usually, what we find is when we're trying to solve a problem, that's constructive. When we're just snapping at people or having relationship conflicts, that's destructive. So, usually, a task conflict is constructive because we're trying to figure out how to do it the best way. And one person doesn't know that. We need all the opinions, right? So that we can take them into account, figure out what works, and figure out what is best. But sometimes we have a social conflict. The example I give you is on reality shows, right? When they get, and I don't even know what reality show this is. I just Googled reality show fights. So hopefully you'll know. But imagine whatever reality show, they always get into fights. It's always dramatic, but it's hardly ever actually about the task. It's just this social conflict. And it's unhealthy because there's no way to solve it. Like you can't go, oh, okay, let's do this differently. It's about this weird social conflict, and that is destructive, right? So keep those in mind. Um, as we're trying to solve conflict, as we're trying to manage it, sometimes it escalates. Okay. And if you notice the chart in your reading, there's usually an avoid or approach. Right? We find that as a theme in a lot of things. So we either decide to avoid the conflict or we decide to approach it. And as it escalates, the ones that are approaching in your book, the escalations, those are not very healthy, right? But avoiding conflict is not healthy either. So in that list, we want to find a middle. And if we see any of those escalations going on our team, we can know, hey, that also is a red flag. We need to address this. So as you read, remember that the goal is to manage, not to avoid conflict. Okay. It's absolutely essential to make sure that we address it. So keep those gears in mind and keep that image that I just created with the gears going together, right? If things are going smoothly, we might be driving off a cliff. So we've got to back up. We've got to make sure everyone is in the right place. And sometimes that requires rearranging these gears. And sometimes that process is complicated. Okay. There's conflict, there's confusion, there's reorganization, but it's absolutely essential to make sure we get where we want to go. All right. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. And otherwise, I'll see you in class.